Well, hello and happy Friday, summer 2025 General Anatomy and Physiology crew. Wanted to give you one more little update just to set the stage and help you as much as possible transition into this class during kind of a chaotic week. I'll definitely admit that things started fast. We always like to start this first week after Memorial Day, and it definitely does get a little bit crazy right off the bat, especially if it's been a while since you've been back to school. Maybe it's been decades, maybe it was last semester, maybe you've never taken an online class before, maybe you're new to St. Kate's, and sometimes for some of you, it's all of those things wrapped up together. What I'm going to ask you to do is jump in here, give it as much as you got for this week, and then on Sunday, we'll start the next week, so you'll have a little chance to breathe. And this summer, we'll have three major sort of series of exams. And the week before each of those exams, we will have no new content. So there is a little bit of time coming up in a couple of weeks. If you still find yourself struggling after studying mightily, if you find yourself struggling with introductory material or maybe organic molecules, there will be some time to take a deep breath and review these first sort of three chunks of content prior to taking the first round of exams. And like anything, I promise we will get into a routine. So just to recap, the way to do this class is to get online and stay online quite a bit. Also check your emails at least twice per day. So because we're never going to see each other because we're asynchronous, email is how we communicate. I need you to at least check your email in the morning, and I need you to at least check your email before you go to bed at night. And a lot of us are doing it from our phone, so it's not going to be very hard. Because if there is email communication, you're responsible for that. So if you don't check your email and you miss something important, that's on you for not accessing the communication. This is how we do it. So for every week, and this is week one, the best way to do it is open up that week in Canvas. So for example, it says week one. In each week, I'll give you a little video that talks about the week, but I'll also give you a document called the overview. And that overview is essentially your checklist for the week. So you should take a look at these, and they're going to start to be very familiar. There's always going to be some lecture content, and then usually a quiz announcement for the lecture content. There will be some lab content, and then usually an announcement for the lab quiz. And sometimes we'll have other stuff. Sometimes there'll be sample problems that are posted. Sometimes there'll be an additional assignment like we had this week with the critical skills, which I'll talk about later. And then after you take a look at that overview, make yourself a checklist and then plan your week. I'm going to keep things super regular this summer to help you adjust. New weeks essentially start on Monday and then go through Sunday. So we'll start new content at the front of the week. You'll always have a quiz that will always run from Sunday morning to Monday morning. And then we'll start new content over again. And the reason I keep it regular is so it can be predictable and so you can schedule for it and or schedule around it. Okay, so after you take a look at the overview, take a look at what you got to do and then plan things out. It really will require hours per day to get this content. It really will. There's no other way around it. There's no magic bullet. I know it sounds scary, and I'm not saying this to try to intimidate you or dissuade you. I'm saying this to you so that you're clear on the expectations and then you can plan around it. And it always will take a couple of rounds of quizzes to see to self-assess. The beautiful thing about weekly quizzes is that they keep you motivated, but they also give you feedback about how you're doing. And then just jump in and know that at the end of the week of content, you'll have some kind of assessments. Sometimes we'll do assignments. Those will always be due on Friday night, so those are super regular. And you don't have to wait until the due date to turn in assignments. And in fact, I'd encourage you not to, because those due dates, because they're published all summer in advance, they're kind of set in stone a little bit. There's not a lot of leeway on those. And if you find yourself turning things in late, that actually comes out of your end. So, and I'm a procrastinator. I was in school for a long time and I always waited till the last minute to do things, but it's really not the way to do it. So set yourself up for success by starting heavily and working really hard, if you can, over Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. That gives you a little bit more breathing time as the assessments roll up. All right, so every week, take a look at the week, watch the little intro video, take a look at the overview, know what you have coming up, make sure that you're aware of what you're responsible for, and then just start cranking in. The beautiful thing about an asynchronous class, like the class we're in, is that it lets you do the work when you can do the work. So rather than coming to class on Tuesdays and having you listen to me in the summer for 5 hours on a Tuesday, you'll have the chance to do this work when you can do this work. So let's take a look at week one. So today is Friday. Last Thursday night, you had an introduction video of yourself due, and that was to serve as your attendance. I'm required to report attendance for this class, and if you're not showing up, I've got to tell the register that so they can kick you out of this class so you don't get charged for it. So it seems a little bit punitive on your end, but actually it's a protective mechanism to get students out of a class before they get charged for it. So your introduction video was due last night. If you didn't turn that introduction video in and I haven't heard from you, I'm going to have to mark you absent for this week. That's just how I'm required to do this. Tonight, Friday night, you've got a critical skills assignment due. And what I'm going to ask you to do is imagine a schedule. And this can change, right? I'm going to ask you to imagine how, during a week of your life, you'll be able to fit in enough hours to adequately prepare for this class. So that's what that really is. It's sort of an exercise in planning. And the way to do it isn't to wait till the weekend and say, oh my God, I haven't gotten to the class. And I do know that life happens. And then try to cram everything at the end. It's just not going to work. Remember, you're in this class because you chose the career in healthcare and you need this content. And I'm not throwing shade at any other class or like geology or theology or anything else you might be taking, but you'll need this content. The reason you're here is because you need this content, and your patients will depend on you knowing this content. So think of this as paying it forward a little bit. Tonight's critical skills assignment, in addition to the scheduling piece, will ask you to take a really deep look at the detailed content in the chemistry presentation this week. And we talk a little bit about chemistry. There's talk about atoms, atomic structure, molecules, molecular bonds. But a lot of what we have in this chemistry chapter this week is really going to set the stage for how we succeed this summer. We're really not going to have a chemistry class this summer, but I am going to ask you to know a lot about organic molecules, carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, nucleic acids, etc. And in order to do that, we've got to start someplace. So in order to help you study that detailed content, or any detailed content, there's a great tool called a concept map or a cognitive map, which is sometimes just a visual or graphic representation. Sometimes it's even just a chart of that content listed therein. So when you construct the chart, it's active learning because you're taking the content from the material and you're placing it on a document. So all of a sudden, once there, you've interacted with the material. And the nice thing about this is that every time you study that content, if your concept map is adequate and full of details, you don't have to go back and watch the presentation. You've got a handy dandy, easily travelable document with you that you can study that content. So I'm going to ask you to fill in the chart. Those blanks should all contain content. That content comes directly from the chemistry presentation, specifically the organic chemistry presentation part of that document. And that's due tonight. And by turning it in tonight, what that means is you have that thing to study over the next couple days in preparation for the first quiz. All right, every week we'll have lecture content and lab content. But because this week is a little bit crazy and because there's 2 lecture presentations, sometimes there'll only be 1, I've removed the lab quiz. So you should take a look at Atlas A. You should be doing the work on that. You should spend some hours on that. But the quiz, your first assessment over this week's Atlas A lab content, won't come until the end of week 2. So really, after you've turned in the video assignment, thank you for doing those. I've taken a look at every one that's been turned in. After you do the critical skills assignment tonight, then you've got a couple of days to cram mightily for study is the better term, to prepare and review mightily for that first quiz. And it will be an online quiz. It will be 10 questions. There will probably be 5 questions from the introductory material, 5 questions from the chemistry material. And you know that both of those chapters are really big. So those 10 questions will come from a pool. So you really have to know all the content. That's really your goal every week. The quiz scores can come and go. They really will. Like 5 years from now, no one's going to care what you got on my first round of quizzes. But it's the content that's important. So your goal every week is to learn completely all of the lecture content for that week and all of the lab content for that week. The assessments at the end of the week will help you determine how you're doing on that. But you really remember you're in this class for the content, not necessarily the grade. And there's a cool little switch that happens when you can dedicate yourself to learning the content for the sake of the content. And the gradebook stuff will take care of itself if you are doing that. So your quiz is going to open or be available to you Sunday morning from 9 a.m. until Monday morning at 9 a.m. and you'll have about 10 minutes to take that thing. So somewhere in that 24-hour span, please get yourself to a laptop or a desktop. Don't take these on your devices. When you get to that laptop or desktop, please make sure you've got a stable internet connection, because if your internet connection goes out during any assessment, I can't open it up again. I'm not allowed to let you take them twice. And also, and this is critical, please turn off all notifications and please shut down all other applications. Because when you're taking that quiz, I can see if you navigate away. Whether you navigate away on purpose to look at another website, which is considered cheating, for which you'll receive a 0, and then we'll have a talk and there'll be an academic record created for you saying that you were cheating. And sometimes notifications just pop up, right? If you've got your Google review or your mail or your Spotify stuff on, if any of those other applications are running during the quiz, they will pop up. The computer will show that you navigated away. And because I'm not looking over your shoulder, I'm going to give you a 0 for it. So you cannot navigate away from the course page during the quiz. You also can't use any other resources. You shouldn't have your phone. You shouldn't have your notes. This is an open brain quiz this week, and an open brain quiz only. I'm going to do my best to keep you on track. And it breaks my heart to think that somebody would cheat their way through this process and end up taking care of me, or end up taking care of you, or end up taking care of my loved ones. So I take this massively seriously. If you get caught cheating in my class, there's going to be some serious repercussions. It's not worth ruining your academic and professional goals over any given assignment. You got to do the work. You have to do the work. Also to that, only the course content, only the specific language that's in this course this summer will be valid for answers on tests and quizzes. So if you've had a prior anatomy and physiology class, or if you've had a little bit of chemistry, and you may have some of that stuff dangling around, the correct answers for all the questions will be the answers that come directly and are worded by and have direct language and definitions with this course content. So please make sure you're spending time specifically focusing on this course content. You'll be able to take every quiz, not the exams, but you'll be able to take every quiz 2 times if you choose. You definitely don't have to. I won't be able to get them graded after your first attempt, but the computer will publish a rough grade. So on a lot of our quizzes, there'll be written questions that I won't have time to grade until the quiz window is done. So sometimes the first grade that you see that gets published on a quiz isn't necessarily going to be your final grade, because I do have to go in and I'll have to hand grade or correct for any of those different things. So if you would like to take the quiz twice, what a lot of people do is they take the first attempt right away just to kind of get assessment of how deep the questions are. And the quizzes are drawn from a pool. So if you do take the quiz twice, you won't get the same questions on the second attempt. Other people sometimes go through it, take it right away, and then study a little bit more and take it later. And sometimes people just let their first quiz ride. Sometimes people will take it twice back to back just to do it. Whatever you decide to do, if you take the quiz twice, it's going to be automatically your grade for the second attempt that shows up, even if your attempt for the first quiz is higher. So I'm going to leave it up to you. If it's freaking you out thinking about 2 attempts, just crush it on the first attempt and it'll be fair game. So you'll have a quiz coming up from 9 a.m. Sunday to 9 a.m. Monday. And whenever you get that done, it will publish with some score, and I'll have to go in and then grade those. Sometime on Monday or Tuesday, I'll send everybody an email that said, hey gang, I got a chance to take a look at the grades. Your final grade is now published, so the grade that you see in the grade book will be the grade you get for that assessment. And I will also open up those quizzes so you have them to study and learn from any mistakes, and also have them to study for the rest of the semester. So that's kind of how we'll do it. Okay, a little bit about the textbook. So you're automatically given a textbook at the cheapest possible rate. I think it's under $50, which is kind of ridiculous. Any of you who've ever taken college classes previously and had to buy textbooks, so sometimes those textbooks are like $300, $400, $500. It was ridiculous. So we have an electronic access to the textbook for about $40, and you automatically have that. When you're looking at the Canvas page, take a look down on the left and click on McGraw-Hill, and it should be right there for you. You should have access to that. You may have to click a few things, but you should have automatic access to that. The way to succeed in this class is to take a look at each week's content and study the lecture presentations and the lab presentations. Please hear me on this. Do not just start blindly reading the textbook, because those chapters don't always correspond in their entirety. please hear me on this. Your textbook this summer is to support the content that's primarily focused in the lecture presentations and in the lab during the week. So because time is limiting, and I know you've all got busy lives, when you do this, spend the vast majority of your time going through the lecture presentations. And by the way, I've given you the PowerPoints for them. I've given you the scripts for those things. I've given you outlines for those. Focus on the presentations. Every once in a while, I'll hear a student say, well, I read the entire chapter on chemistry and some of those questions weren't on there, and they're not gonna be. Please, please, please focus on the presentations. If there's any stuff that you're kind of having difficulty with and want another voice, then you've got this amazing electronic textbook that's always with you everywhere you go, and you can check and compare that information and maybe hear it in a different voice, maybe see a different diagram. Use your textbook as support. Okay, you've all signed the syllabus agreement, at least most of you, that says you've read the syllabus completely. There's no grace period. If any shenanigans happen this weekend as you're taking the assessment, whether they're intentional or unintentional, I'm going to hold you accountable and you'll get a 0 on that quiz. We do take this very seriously. We really do. And I'm going to hold you to the departmental policies. So it's up to you to make sure that you've read the syllabus and understand things. I know sometimes, especially at the beginning of a class, when there's all this content, you just sign things and say, okay, and that's totally fine. But because you've acknowledged that, it means you've understood those policies, whether you actually know them or not. And by the way, thank you for getting that done so fast. Okay, I'm your advocate this semester. I'm not here to be a roadblock. We have such cool content. This is the coolest content ever. And you'll need this content in the future. So to help you with that, please know that we will get into routine. I know this is crazy. We're already a couple days in. We'll have quizzes on a weekly basis to help keep you motivated and give you feedback. A couple times this summer, we'll have big rounds of exams. And before you know it, it will get into a very definite routine. Until then, please make sure you're carving out time in your life. Please make sure you're setting aside enough time to study. And students always ask me this, and it's a legitimate question. They say, Paul, how much should I study? Well, a couple hours a day minimum, I would say, until you learn otherwise. And it's really the quizzes at the end of the week that help you kind of assess not only the course content, but they help you reflect on how you prepared. And then you can make any adjustments moving forward. We will all do that this summer. We'll learn from how we prepared and the content during the week, and then we'll make adjustments to make things better during the course of the semester, which is how you do it in academia all the time anyway. All right, if you need me, please get a hold of me. Make sure you're checking your emails twice per day. That's not really that too much to ask, especially since most of us have it on our phone, because if you miss something, you'll miss something, and that could compromise how you deal with this material, could compromise the outcomes for you. And then if you need me, just please reach out. I'm always around pretty much 24/7. I really am. I'm committed to teaching online. We've got 25 students this summer. You're all working at different times, and I'm really committed to try to be available as much as possible for you when you're doing the work. And those of you who've emailed me see that I do get back right away. I really do. I'm committed here. I'm for you. This is a lot of work, and to take a class online, it means you do have to be motivated and a little bit responsible to keep yourself on a timeline. I promise this stuff's not impossible. There's nothing this semester, when you take a look at it, that's impossible. The deal with this summer is we've got quite a bit of it, and we're moving at just a little bit more rapid of a pace. All right, that's enough. This is supposed to be a motivational speech. I hope it's working. Thank you for your time, gang. So tonight, Friday night, you got critical skills assignment due. Please get that in. Make sure you follow the directions. So the critical skills assignments that we'll do are fairly straightforward. Essentially, if you complete and fulfill the requirements, you get all the points. Where you will lose points on these things is if you just don't follow the very clear directions. So it's always worthwhile to triple check, go in there, and then you can submit that to Canvas. And then this weekend, from Sunday to Monday, you'll have your first 10-question quiz over those 2 lecture presentations. If you can do it, what I would say is try to take the quiz if you're prepared, and the goal will be to be prepared early. Take the quiz early on Sunday, because that way you can start on the next week's content. I'll always make the following week's content available on Sunday. So as soon as you get done with your quiz from the previous week, you can take a look at the overview and start cranking on the following week. And that essentially kind of gives you a little bit of a day booster if you're able to set your schedule so that you can get in the habit of taking advantage of that. All right, thanks, gang. Have a great day.